I got broads in Atlanta. Just to lean the family. Credit cards and the scammers.
The latest in the Brett Kavanaugh hearing saga is more stupid. So one of the things that's been deeply irritating about this entire saga is that truth and innocence, guilt, none of these things matter anymore. Truth doesn't matter, guilt doesn't matter, innocence doesn't matter. All that matters is the political Machiavellian manipulations of Democrats and, it turns out, of the accuser's lawyer. So Christine Blaisey Ford is the person who is now accusing Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault 36 years ago at an unspecified time at an unspecified place. And she originally said, I'd like to come and talk to Republicans. And Republicans said, sure, let's do it. And then she said, well, no, I don't want to do that. And they said, well, but you just said you wanted to do it. And she's like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. And I want the FBI to investigate. And Republicans said, well, the FBI doesn't investigate state crimes 36 years ago. You know, when the FBI did an investigation of the sexual harassment allegations against Clarence Thomas in 1991, they did that because Clarence Thomas was an employee of the federal government on federal property under federal jurisdiction at the time that those accusations were about. The same is not true in a private home in the middle of Maryland in 1982. Like, that's not an actual thing the FBI does. And so Republicans were like, well, we're not going to tell the FBI to go investigate a state crime that happened 36 years ago on the basis of no actual evidence except for an allegation that can't even name time and place. And so why don't you just come and talk about it? Now, Kavanaugh has been very clear about this. Kavanaugh put out a letter. He said, I want to be heard. I'm perfectly happy to come before the committee. He said, I continue to want a hearing as soon as possible so I can clear my name. Since the moment I first heard this allegation, I've categorically and unequivocally denied it. I remain committed to defending my integrity. He says he's going to be there on Monday. He's going to testify under oath. That's more than Ford is willing to do. He says he's going to put himself under penalty of perjury. That's more than Ford is willing to do. And I'm sorry, a polygraph is not the same thing as coming and testifying under oath, because if you testify falsely under oath, you could go to jail if you're held to account for perjury. So Kavanaugh is saying, I'm willing to sit there and categorically deny anything like this ever happened. And I'm going to do that under oath. And meanwhile, Ford's lawyers are attempting desperately to avoid her actually testifying. So she's issued a list of demands. Now, I don't know since when it's become a thing to issue a list of demands to testify in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. The Senate Judiciary Committee does indeed have subpoena power. I looked it up this morning. So there is a power of subpoena for the Senate Judiciary Committee. The committee rules allow a subpoena under two circumstances. This is Section 9 of the rules for the Committee on the Judiciary. The chairman of the committee, with the agreement of the ranking member, so that'd be Dianne Feinstein, or by a vote of the committee, may subpoena the attendance of a witness at a committee or subcommittee hearing or committee deposition, or the production of memoranda, documents, records, or any other materials. Any such subpoena shall be issued upon the signature of the chairman or any other member of the committee designated by the chairman. So, in other words, all Republicans really have to do here is subpoena her. They could theoretically just vote on straight party lines to subpoena Christine Blasey Ford, and then she'd have to testify. But they're not doing that. Instead, because they are trying to be solicitous of her emotional needs, they're being very, I think, open about all of the things that they are willing to do for her. What are some of her demands? Well, frankly, her demands are totally crazy. Okay, the demands that she's making are nuts. So here are some of the things that she is now demanding. No outside counsel questions her. So she refuses to allow Kavanaugh's lawyer to question her in any hearing. Instead, she wants it just to be the senators. The reason for that is so that Democrats can run out the clock and grandstand. If it just turns into the senators questioning her, then it's certainly not going to be about truth or about falsity. It's just going to be about Dianne Feinstein and Kamala Harris signaling for 2020. It's going to be Cory Booker signaling for 2020. You say that this man raped you, and these evil white Republican old men here who want to question you, they're evil white, and they're Republican old men. That'll be Cory Booker. It's going to be his second Spartacus moment. Right? That's what Christine Blasey Ford's lawyers want, that if she's there, she can be defended by Democratic senators, and then the people who will be asking her questions from the right will be people like Orrin Hatch, who was born during the James K. Polk administration. Like that's what she's actually looking for. Okay, so that is demand number one. That is an idiotic demand that has nothing to do with reality. Second, this one is truly insane. She is demanding that the defense should testify first. That's crazy. Okay, there is no proceeding in American life where the defense to a charge testifies first. for good reason. You don't know what you're being charged with. If I were to go into court and the police said, you know what, we've got a charge against you. The charge is manslaughter. I was like, well, I need to hear the details of that so I can, defend myself, maybe give you an alibi, tell you where I was at the time. And they say, you know what? No, we're not going to give you any of that stuff. You need to present your defense first. You would rightly say, what are you talking about? How am I supposed to defend myself against charges when the only thing we know is that you claim that in a house, at a time, in a place, I did something wrong? How the hell am I supposed to even mobilize a defense based on that? There's no way to do that. So she's demanding that as well. She is also demanding a subpoena against Mark Judge. Now, that one I find the least objectionable, that they should subpoena Mark Judge. Mark Judge is supposedly a witness to what happened. Asking him questions under oath seems to me fairly reasonable. But they should also subpoena all the other people who she says were there. They should subpoena everybody if they're going to do like a full criminal trial here. Or alternatively, she should testify and Kavanaugh should testify. She also says that Kavanaugh cannot ask her questions and Kavanaugh cannot be in the same room as her. Okay, this is so anti-constitutional. The Constitution says that you have a right to confront your accuser, that if somebody accuses you of a crime, you have a right to actually question the witness. You have a right to confront. And let's be real about this. This has become a criminal trial of Brett Kavanaugh. This is a criminal trial. Brett Kavanaugh's career either will end with him on the Supreme Court or it will end with him bankrupt, right? It will end with him maybe really losing his job on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, being destroyed as a human being. Right? That's where this goes if people feel that Blaisey Ford is telling the truth. So to treat this as anything less than what it is, which is essentially a criminal trial, is really absurd. But this is what Ford is pushing. And she's saying that if you don't fulfill those commitments, then I'm not going to come testify at all. We still don't know whether she's going to come testify next Thursday. They're probably trying to push this beyond next Thursday because if Kavanaugh is confirmed after the end of September, then he can't sit during a full term of the court. So maybe that's what they're looking for. But this is all ridiculous stuff. Also, you can tell how politicized all of this is. So how politicized is all of this at this point? How much of this is Democratic manipulation? Virtually all of it is Democratic manipulation. How do we know that? Well, there's a story out today that Kavanaugh's accuser now has a new advisor. Who is this advisor? Ricky Seidman. Now, you may not remember that name, Ricky Seidman. Ricky Seidman is the person who was working for the Senate Judiciary Committee for Senator Ted Kennedy all the way back during the Anita Hill hearings. Okay, so Ricky Seidman is the person who went and solicited Anita Hill in the first place to come forward with her very questionable sexual harassment stories about Clarence Thomas. And now this accuser has hired the same person to advise her through this process. Does that sound partisan to you? Imagine that I came forward with a bunch of allegations against Barack Obama about something. And the person I hired to guide me through that process was Ken Starr. Would people think maybe that was a partisan thing? Because this sounds kind of partisan. Seidman said in a brief interview, I believe her and I think she's very courageous for coming this far. She worked as Joe Biden's communications director during the 2008 general election campaign. And in 2009, she helped the White House manage the confirmation of Sonia Sotomayor. So this woman who only cares about getting to the truth, not about the politics, she only cares about justice and getting to the truth, just hired a political hack responsible for the raising of Anita Hill, the Joe Biden campaign in 2008, and Sonia Sotomayor. Now, again, for the 1 millionth time, maybe Ford is telling the truth. It's possible she is. It's possible she's misremembering. It's possible she's telling the truth. If she's telling the truth, we have to get to the seriousness of the allegations, the truth or falsehood of the allegations. We must get to that. If we do not get to that, all of this is worthless. And that's the part that's so irritating. I want to know whether it's true or false, because if it's true, it's damning, obviously. If it's true that Brett Kavanaugh, when he was 17 years old, pushed a girl into a room, pushed her down on a bed, lay on top of her, tried to rip off her clothes, put his hand over her mouth to prevent her from screaming, I don't think he should sit on the Supreme Court. You know, there's some people on the right side who say, well, if that happened, I don't see why that should mar him the rest of his life. No, I think that probably should mar him. That's a really, really bad crime. Again, the reason I know it's a bad crime, because if somebody did that to my sister and I came in the middle of that event, I'd shoot him. Right, I would pick up a blunt instrument and beat the living bejesus out of him, right? So it's a bad thing to do, a thing bad enough that, yes, it should haunt you if that's something that you did. but we have to know whether it's true or false. It's because I take the charges seriously that I want to know if they're true or false. If I didn't take the charges seriously, I wouldn't care whether they were true or false. If she came forward and she accused Brett Kavanaugh of shoplifting a Slurpee in 1982, then I wouldn't care. I'd be like, okay, fine, he shoplifted a Slurpee in 1982. He was a stupid kid. Who cares? But this is a serious charge, which requires serious evidence and a serious hearing, which is not what we're getting. And the Democrats obviously are not interested in getting down to the bottom of this. They're interested in the politicking surrounding all of it.